name is Ranulph Fiennes, and I am the brand ambassador-in-chief of Kobold. For nearly 2 decades, I have chosen to wear a Kobold watch on all my expeditions. Some of my expeditions over 40 years have taken me to the most remote and lethal parts of this world. Over those years and along the way of the expeditions, I've made mistakes and nearly died by various means several times. I've been an athlete, adventure racing, a mountaineer, a soldier in the special forces, fighting in various parts of the world, an author. I've written 18 books. In the 1960s, fighting the communists, I was working for the army of the Sultan of Oman. About 160 of us in the army in South Dhofar during the war period, and there were about 5,000 well-trained communists trained in the Soviet Union, or what was then the Soviet Union. We had to go into areas where no human beings had been before, other than the local Bedu on camelback. And we had a situation where they had anti-tank mines, which would blow a vehicle over 200 meters, and the 10 blokes inside of it would be blown further than that. And on one occasion, we went over an anti-tank mine, and luckily, because we had sandbags inside the vehicle, 2 people were badly wounded, but we actually survived. In 1969, an Arab informer told me that in the great desert, the hugest desert in the world, the Rub al-Khali, or empty quarter of Arabia, there was a fabulous lost city. I started to look for this lost city way back in 1969. Over the next 26 years, I launched 8 more expeditions into the empty quarter that I eventually found the lost city, and today it's one of the biggest and most important excavation works in Arabia. I've been messing around on the Arctic pack ice or the Antarctic land ice for more time than anybody alive today. You can get very bad diarrhea in a place like that, but you have to keep traveling. Frostbite is an obvious danger. Falling into crevasses is a danger. Starvation is a danger. Being cut off, particularly in Antarctica, is a danger. Over-reliance on mechanical high-tech gizmos is a big danger because they don't like -50. They will stop working. And if you're relying on them instead of trusted methods like a theodolite or a sextant, then you can be in serious trouble too. So if you go into the Arctic or the Antarctic, you can have a wonderful time, or if you're trying to be first to do one of the remaining polar challenges, then you can run into real trouble because you're in an area where humans haven't been before. In 1972, my wife Jenny decided that we ought to try the biggest one on Earth, which was to try to do the first ever journey around the world on its polar axis, never flying 1 meter of the 52,000-mile journey. That expedition took us 7 years to prepare for, full-time work, unpaid, and 3 years of permanent travel to get from the zero meridian via the South Pole, up north of Canada, through the Northwest Passage, over the North Pole, over the Arctic Ocean, back to Greenland, and finally back to zero at Greenwich in the UK. The first time and the last time anybody has travelled around the world on its surface by any route. Tucked away deep in Pennsylvania's Amish country lies a small farm called Merry Oaks. Time, it would appear, has been standing still in this remote farming community. In this idyllic setting, a handful of skilled artisans turn out a line of professional-grade wristwatches and other expedition tools. The company's journey began in 1998 when Michael Kobold began making and selling watches as part of an entrepreneurship class project at Carnegie Mellon University. The idea behind Kobold watches was simple: to make the toughest watches in the world.
When young Mike Kobold asked me to join his company in the role of brand ambassador and chief product advisor, I was happy to do so.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's the prototype.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, well done, Mike. That's very good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The GMT hand you wanted?
Yes, correct. That's good. That's perfect.
You said you use that on the expeditions, right? For communication.
Yeah, for navigation. We had to use GMT, particularly as you're getting near the pole. So, yeah, we always use GMT for working with a nautical almanac or for the site reduction tables for that area.
And then we put a, the rotating bezel.
Yeah, that I'm really glad, because that is an important functioning, bearing in mind that for travelling like in Antarctica, after an hour you go completely stir crazy because of trying to keep an accurate thing in a whiteout conditions with absolutely nothing, not even a cloud to aim for. So what we do is every hour we'll change over, and then 60 minutes later exactly I'll turn over. And so rather than have an alarm sounding every hour, which would be complex and extremely circumstance where you don't want to move anything, you don't want to set things with, because you take your gloves off, your hands get frostbite. So to have something really simple which can be operated by a thick mitt, like a bezel on the outside, which is marked with a particular spot. So you can set that spot at the moment that you set out, and then you watch the hour hand.
The early beginnings of the company were truly humble. Instead of renting an office, the kitchenette and adjoining dining room in Michael Kobold's tiny apartment doubled as Kobold's first headquarters. The first Kobold watches were produced by the legendary Helmut Sinn. Rather than hiring an agency to create its advertisements, Kobold created them in-house. A few years later, together with Michael's watchmaking mentor, Gerd Lang, we designed a watch case that would be the cornerstone of the Kobold line of watches.
Natürlich kann ich mich daran erinnern, als der Michael kam und sagte, ich habe da jetzt so Entwürfe für Gehäuse und hat eine Form geschaffen, die schon auch Andeutungen zu meinen Formen hat, die klar sind, die deutlich sind, die von allen Seiten einen Charakter haben und nicht nur von oben und von hinten schlechter aussehen. Alles das hat er gelernt am Kairos-Gehäuse und hat wirklich sehr, sehr gut zugelernt und hat dann auch zu Recht dann dieses Gehäuse mit einem eigenen, seinem Namen versehen, mit dem Soarway-Namen. Und so ist der Anfang eigentlich auch geschehen. Er konnte sich schon mal beim Gehäuse daran halten, von einer Form, die ihm gefällt und die er für richtig hält und die eben auch diese Parallelen auch zu Uhren von meiner Serie gelernt hat und umgesetzt hat. Die Struktur und die Philosophie des Gehäuses ist wieder rübergekommen. Ja. Es war genauso der Weg, wie ich ihn gegangen bin, hat er sich auch zu eigen gemacht.
A few years later, Mike enlisted his friend, the late actor James Gandolfini, as the company's second brand ambassador. James helped design another iconic Kobold watch, the legendary Seal. To promote it, Michael and James concocted an unconventional and memorable advertising campaign using Jim's middle finger. Kobold endeavoured to manufacture its watches in the United States, and in doing so sparked a renaissance of US-made timepieces, almost 4 decades after the last American watch was built. What makes Kobold special is its capability to manufacture its watch components in-house. While other American watch companies are mostly importing their components from overseas and only assembled stateside, Kobold fabricates watch components on Merry Oaks Farm in Amish country. The 170-year-old farm serves as Kobold's headquarters and offers sufficient space for future expansion. Its historic barns were carefully restored by the Amish, and today house modern CNC equipment.
Now we're finally making the parts. Jay, this
Hi,
is
Jay.
Brad.
Good to meet you.
My pleasure, sir.
Yeah.
This case back gets screwed into position, so there's a little bit of a thread there. Very low.
And when you get the two bits together, you always find they mesh. They never make mistakes, the machines.
Oh no, the machines don't make mistakes. People make mistakes, but the machines don't make mistakes. So that's the case back for the Langley model.
Yeah.
So there is, and for old eyes, sometimes it's difficult to see, but there's a thread on there. I'll turn it this way.
How many do you reckon you can finish in a day?
It depends on the watch and their demands, how many they run at one time. As you can see, the Phantom, we've got 15 parts running here and 20 lanes.
Just for today?
It's just, no, the total operation would take 3 to 4 days of constant running.
For doing the case?
Oh yeah. We are doing the final operation of the Phantom mid-case. We are in the last op is machining of the crown area, the underside of the watch, and a little bit of chamfer.
It's got its own memory of exactly what it must do.
Yes.
So in here, from a little bit of steel, you're making that shape.
That part.
From just a little bit of
From round bar stop. All the parts are made here.
Amazing.
We make everything.
Incredible.
Good to see you here.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Yes, I hope to see you back here. Hope to see you back here, sir.
It's come on leaps and bounds since last year.
Yes, it's come away. All right.
Back in the year 2000, when Rudiger and Mike and myself started talking about this particular watch, I told them the perfect watch for extreme conditions over a long period of time with nobody to help you. You must be totally reliable. It must operate at minus 80 degrees centigrade. It must tell me, because in those days you have no GPS, it must tell me using only the altitude of the sun, direction and everything else from my watch. Between the three of us, we ended up with the perfect watch. I could, on one condition, I could have GMT, on another I could have my local time at midday. So just using my Kobold polar watch and the position of the sun, on those days when I could see the sun, I would know exactly what direction to move in on a journey where for 2,000 miles there were no features whatsoever, no possibility of using a magnetic compass, and every necessity to be accurate, just with that type of watch. When we were designing the Polar Surveyor, Rudiger, as a master watchmaker, he put into actuality the things that I told him would be necessary for the Polar Surveyor watch. Rudiger and Mike and I knew that we would need a very special case for this design of watch for the sort of expedition that I would be doing. We called this particular case the Soarway case. And when you're pulling sledges and things, you're constantly getting snagged, and it would be very easily for a 400-pound sledge pulling one way on your jacket sleeve to completely undo anything that wasn't really, really strong. And that is why we need screw locks and not just pins. The Soarway case was launched in 2002. At the time, Kobold was still too small to produce its own cases in-house, so it outsourced the production of the Soarway case to 5 key suppliers in Switzerland, Germany, and the Czech Republic. Back in America, Kobold endeavored to manufacture its watches in the United States, almost 4 decades after the last American watch was built. The production of the components requires a high degree of skill. There is a lot of handwork involved. When Kobold was founded in 1998, only one other American watch company was in existence. Today, no fewer than 24 watch companies are competing in a growing market. The first American watch in almost 40 years, the Kobold Spirit of America, was released on July 4, 2008. Since then, Kobold has switched its production to being entirely US-made in almost all areas except the manufacture of complete movements. Once the individual components are fabricated, they are carefully checked to ensure high quality. Then they are cleaned before being assembled. Made in USA is back.